Oh, you already have your tree up.
Yes. Last week. I love the tree. I'd keep it up all year if I could.
Board Member Benavides, we are streaming.
Okay, thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. I am officially calling this meeting of the APS Board of Education Policy Committee to order. Dr. Albright, may I have a roll call, please?
Janelle Estorga, Ronaldo Tomorito,
Here.
Courtney Jackson,
Here.
Josefina Dominguez, Heather Benavides.
Here. And item 2 on the agenda is agenda adoption. And so our first item for consideration is to consider the adoption of the December 1st, 2025 Policy Committee meeting agenda. May I have a motion and a second, please?
I move to adopt the December 1st, 2025 Policy Committee meeting agenda. This is Member Jackson.
I will second Board Member Tomorito.
Okay, we have a motion by Board Member Jackson and a second by Board Member Tomorito. And Dr. Albright, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Ronaldo Tomorito,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Heather Benavides.
Yes. Thank you. Item 3 is to consider the approval of the minutes from the Policy Committee meeting held on November 3rd, 2025. May I have a motion and a second, please?
I move to approve the minutes from the Policy Committee meeting on November 3rd, 2025. This is Member Jackson.
And I will second Board Member Tomorito.
Thank you. We have a motion from Member Jackson, second from Member Tomorito. Dr. Albright, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Ronaldo Tomorito,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Heather Benavides.
Yes. Thank you. And so item 4 is public forum, but we do not have anybody signed up to speak this evening. And I don't think that's changed. So we will move on to item 5, which is the continuation of the first read of the board policy KC for charter schools. And let me pull that up. And so I'm just going to go over the background really quickly, just for some information for anybody who might be watching. And so the board approved the recommendations of revisions to Board Policy KC Charter Schools at the August 6, 2025 Board of Education meeting. The recommendation to review the board policy at the August 6th meeting. The policy committee discussed the first read of board policy KC charter schools at its October 6, 2025 meeting and decided to do additional research before bringing the policy back before committee for discussion. This discussion will continue as the first read of the board policy KC charter schools. The side-by-side comparison of the current board policy KC charter schools and proposed revisions provided by the policy chair is to assist in the facilitation of a discussion by highlighting key changes, including statutory authority references. Administration has updated the statutory references and administration positions to the current policy. And so we have all received the current charter school policy language and the proposed language in a document provided to us on the agenda. And I would like to, having reviewed the documentation ahead of time, I would like to open it up for discussion from any of the board members at the meeting this evening, committee members at the meeting this evening. Sure, certainly, Board Member Jackson.
Thank you, Chair Benavides. So I was reading through, and I think that there are definitely some thoughtful additions to the discussion to a potential revision. But I go back to my thought from the previous policy meeting, in which a lot of what is being proposed is actually better suited to be within a procedural directive instead of within policy. And so my recommendation from the outset would be to send this to ask the superintendent to review the proposed revisions that have been submitted through this process, and ask that she incorporate some of those ideas into the procedural directive. Because when I did go to review the procedural directive, I noticed that the last time that it was updated was in 2016. So it's probably time for a procedural directive update. And I think that some interesting ideas have definitely been brought to light. But it just seems that these are more operational, kind of very specific. And so I think it's probably time for a procedural directive review. And I mean, I would just ask kind of before I hand that over as on a platter to Dr. Blakey, if that's something that you think is possible, is doable by reading through the proposed revisions, just maybe what your thoughts are as well, Dr. Blakey.
Chair Benavides and members of the committee, yes, I think Dr. Escobedo is on too, but it looks like it last reviewed in 2016, and I know that Dr. Escobedo has done a lot of work in this department since then. So there's probably a lot of systems and processes that he does now that we probably need to update in the procedural directive anyway. So I think that I see that some of the revisions, like the superintendent or designee shall establish and publish a clear process for charter school application submission, review, public hearing, and approval or denial. And then under that is more of the procedural directive. And so we can look at how we would incorporate some of these thoughts into the procedural directive, and then have the board review for comments. But I think Dr. Escobedo, do you agree that's something we would be able to?
Yes, absolutely.
So, thank you. Chair Benavides, do I still have the floor? Okay, thank you. So I think that's kind of what I agree. I mean, I definitely went into a little bit more specifics as to where I thought some of this stuff was maybe already discussed in the procedural directive, maybe where things could be added or taken out. But I think, again, just focusing on our role as broad policy instead of very distinct procedure and operation, that would be my recommendation for the policy, is to send these suggested revisions to the superintendent and her designee or her designee for updates for the directive, and then revisit if necessary next year.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And thank you, Dr. Blakey, for your contribution to that. And so I'm curious, we briefly discussed the Albuquerque Public Schools shall establish a process for application submission and review, but this question is specific to Dr. Blakey. Are there other areas that you have reviewed that you feel could be updated if you were to receive this task?
Yeah, I think
request from the board?
overall, in the current procedural directive, it's pretty outdated. I think there's a lot of places that I don't think there's any reference to the performance framework, right? And so, and I don't even think there's really reference to, Dr. Escobedo has put together a pretty robust team that goes in to do the reviews, and I don't think there's really mention of that either. So Dr. Escobedo, do you have anything to add to things we would need to put into the procedural directive?
I think that's also a place where we can align some of the discussion around goals and district alignments. So we'll work on that as well. So I think that'll be all encompassing of the conversations we've had.
Okay, thank you. Committee member Tomarito, do you have anything you'd like to contribute for or against, or in support of this idea, or in support of continuing the discussion to change the policy, revise the policy?
I think that Just as what's being stated, we do need to look at how much of it is procedural directive. But I also know that in looking at some of the revisions in the current KC, and like you mentioned, even to the superintendent, that she just stated that majority of this would be in the directive, the procedural directive. So I'm open for that, having that also being guided by and taken on behalf of the charter schools to reevaluate and see what comes up in their reevaluation of this.
Okay. I think that's very helpful, and please stop me if I've interrupted you and you had more to say.
Oh, no, I'm good.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that. And if I'm recalling correctly, the last time we discussed this, and I think it was at the October 6th meeting, we discussed really discussing or bringing a strategy to future authorization or renewal of charter schools as opposed to revising the policy in general. Am I incorrect in that recollection? No?
Board member, Chair Benavides, I don't believe you are. I think,
Okay.
yeah, it was, my recollection is that board members in general feel like maybe the information is not as robust as they would feel it needs to be when reauthorization comes. And so it feels like some of this is coming from the need for better communication from the administration to the board throughout the year, which I think my interpretation of that was that is the strategy is we need better communication. And I think some of that is reflected in the proposed revisions, but adhering to the governance versus management, I'm concerned about placing such strict operational directives into a policy, specifically that section where it starts, the superintendent or designee shall establish and publish a clear process, blah, blah, blah. And then it goes into very specifics as to what those are. So that was my recollection.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And Member Tomorito, is that yours as well?
Yes, it's the same thing, because I do agree that we do need to have better communication. And at least with this, there's a process and what needs to happen. But I also agree that some of it is more of a procedural directive than policy. But I like that it gives, it gives us information that we didn't have before. And it gives us at least to say that this is where we start and this is where we finish. And then to repeatedly have that communication throughout the year is going to really help us. So I agree upon that.
Okay, thank you. It's very helpful. And so I want to acknowledge, because she's not here, I want to acknowledge the thoughtfulness and the hard work that Chair Dominguez put into what she's proposed here. And I think that it is a very strong foundation for us as a committee to ask that the superintendent and her cabinet please revisit the procedural directive to update it. And I would, if both committee members agree to that, I wish Chair Dominguez was here, because I know this is really her work and she was at the heart of this. And I don't want to speak for her, but I don't want to diminish what she's accomplished here at all. And but I would like to just make sure before we move forward, because it sounds like we're all on the same page as to that's what we want to do, as how we're going to move forward. I just want to make sure from both committee members that we do all agree that this is procedural directive and that we would like the administration to take into account the items, the proposed revisions in their work to update the PD.
I I concur.
Okay,
Your statement, yes.
okay, and committee member Tomorito?
I agree, and just as you stated, Board Member Benavides is, acknowledging Board Member Dominguez and her hard work for all she put together on this. And I know that she wanted to be here, but
Mhm.
I just know that she did. She did a lot of work, and not to disvalue that, but also just to let, the superintendent and them that they would include a majority of her work, and that as we go forward and on our next read, that I hope that would be established. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Very helpful. And so just so I'm understanding the process correctly, if we decide at this meeting to not move forward with changing the policy, but instead ask the administration to please update the procedural directive based on the information provided and the revisions proposed, we don't need another read, correct? And I guess I'm asking for procedure.
Chair Benavides, I'm happy to answer that unless Ms. Martinez or Dr. Blakey or somebody else wants to.
Yes, so what
Okay.
I'm hearing is that we would go through with a procedural directive update and then send that to the full board just for, so that they can see it. And the current policy would stay the same.
Okay, okay,
There's
thank you.
very little in the policy that's not procedural directive. There's, really little parts of it, like just the Charter Schools Act and things like that. We could always at a later time put that on a consent. That kind of language can be on a consent agenda for a change to a policy. Ms. Martinez, do you have anything to add?
Dr. Blakey, Chair Benavides, I do want to draw the committee's attention to the last page of the policy. There are some legal updates that should be updated in KC. So if those can remain in consideration for any updates that you make this evening.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. I noticed that as well. Okay, so, well, I guess I'm a little confused for a second. So can we revise parts of the policy and take out what is procedural directive and just update the statutes?
Chair Benavides, yes, you can.
Okay,
I believe,
If
Board Member Jackson, if this is correct, that if you were to or Ms. Martinez, if you were to just change the policy with the essentially the administrative position and the legal cross references, you could do that on a consent agenda with the board. You don't have to do a first, second read because you're just putting in like the updates to the current policy. There really isn't language change. So we could put, if it's just like the technical, adding the legal cross references, changing the administrative position, and even the consistent with New Mexico Charter Schools Act language, all of that language doesn't need to go to a full read. It's minor changes that could go onto a consent agenda.
okay.
Chair Benavides.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Blakey. That's what I was pausing on, was trying to work that through in my head about consent agendas. And so, yeah, if it's not substantive changes to the policy, it can go through on consent.
Okay, so we want to send it to the administration to update the procedural directive based on the proposed changes, proposed revisions, but we do want to put on the consent agenda an update to and the addition of the statutes and the administrative code that are listed in red and the cross references.
Correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
all right. Are there any objections to that or any final questions?
No.
No? No? Okay. I don't think we need to vote on this. It looks like it's just a discussion. I might be wrong, but y'all can correct me.
That is correct. It's just a discussion item.
Okay. All right. Well, that is a very, very short discussion, but I think a substantive discussion. And I think that we came to a useful conclusion. And I appreciate the committee members for being here and for having that discussion. And I agree. I'm happy that we all agree to move forward in the same direction. That is very, I think it's kind of rare, but it's a good feeling. So I don't have a chair report for Chair Dominguez. And I also don't know when the next policy committee meeting is going to be. It'll likely be after the new board is assembled in January and with new board members on it, so and a new chair. And unless there are any final thoughts, then I think that we can officially adjourn this meeting at 5:35 p.m.
Fastest policy meeting ever.
Pretty fast.
I know.
Yeah.
Great job, guys.
Thank you both. And thank you, administration, for being here and for all the work you've done. And thank you, Dr. Albright.
Thank you, everyone.
And
We'll see
Sal.
you Wednesday
Thank you, everyone.
or tomorrow.